you about our trip to Haiti. First of all, I would like to thank you, all of you, for your support of Tony and I, and Gail Carlson also accompanying us on this last trip. I'm sure that you're aware that Haiti is the poorest country in, and if you want to go to the next slide, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, that's fine. It's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and with lack of governmental structure, the work going on there would not happen without your financial assistance. And these are the Mompremiers. The tall, dark gentleman is John. He was born and raised in Bohac, Haiti, which is in the Central Plateau. Like most Haitians, John grew up in the Catholic Church. But voodoo, strangely enough, was practiced alongside the church rituals. It was his older brother that encouraged him to attend a church 20 miles away, where John recognized that voodoo had tainted Christ's message to his people. Christy was raised in Orange City, Iowa, and was called to mission to Haiti about 20 years ago when she was in college. It was there that she met and fell in love with John. Eventually, they returned to the United States, where John would get his theology degree, and Christy became a nurse. Then, 6 years later, with their 2 young children, they returned to Haiti. They did not know what they were going to do, but they were determined to give back and make a difference. They arrived in Bohac with only 3 months of financial support for their mission. Christy tells us how it began. Growing up, John had seen how money was continually paid to the voodoo witch doctors for protections, healings, and other rituals instead of paying for the children to go to school. He tells that voodoo is a religion of fear, and that fear was used to extort money from the people. Christy saw how they fattened goats to be used in voodoo rituals instead of feeding their own families. Her heart was broken when she saw children eating charcoal from a cooled fire because it had taste and it filled their hungry tummies when they had no food. It was then that she told John that they must find a way to feed these children. They had no idea how they would do it or where the money would come from. They only knew what God was telling them to do. So it started here with the first feeding program. They now have 7 feeding centers throughout the area. The gentleman in the middle is Nelson. He was the most powerful witch doctor in the area. John believes that there are 2 things that are impoverishing his people: lack of education and voodoo. His hometown had become a gathering place for witch doctors, a sort of voodoo convention center, if you will. Each night after his return, John could hear the drumming of the witch doctors doing their ceremonies. Finally, one night, he had had enough. He and a friend went up to Nelson's home and told him about Jesus. You need to understand that this is not a bunch of benign, superstitious mumbo-jumbo. In Haiti, it is organized crime, and witch doctors are hitmen. Nelson's own mother and brother were afraid of him and feared that he would kill them. So when John confronted Nelson, he was taking his life into his hands. But John was convinced that voodoo could not touch him as long as Jesus was on his side. Nelson, on the other hand, would have nothing to do with either John or Jesus, and put a curse on them and expected that they would be dead by morning. Nelson was surprised when they showed up at his door the next night. Still, he would have nothing to do with them and called on more of his evil spirits to assure that John and his friend would not be back. When they showed up the following night, he admits that he was unnerved. And he wondered what kind of power this was that was protecting these men. This time, John left a Bible with Nelson and asked him to read it. Nelson had no intention of doing this, but as in many countries where the gospel is spreading, God spoke to Nelson in his dreams. Nelson tells how a spirit came to him at night and told him to read the Bible. He said it was not one of his voodoo spirits, and I think we kind of know what spirit it might have been. Each night, Nelson had the same dream and a visit from the same spirit. Finally, he asked John to come and tell him more about Jesus, and Nelson gave up voodoo and became a Christian. Now Nelson has a new job. He is a mason. He helped us pour this cement floor in his family's home. These floors are important. Many children suffer from anemia and malnutrition because of intestinal worms that are absorbed from the ground that they sleep on. Over 300 floors have been cemented in homes over the years since Mompremiers have been there. Faith is the basis for everything that John and Christy do. It began with obedience to God's call upon their lives, and it continues in the same way. This is John's church, but he has educated and equipped many pastors, and there are now 35 churches in the surrounding area that are supported by UCI. 20 witch doctors have been converted to Christianity, and the others have left the area. John believes that education is also important for Haiti's future. In Haiti, there are no regulations governing who can teach, so many of the teachers, though well-meaning, do not even have a high school education. Therefore, it is very hard for their students to pass the national high school exam. The Mompremiers started in elementary school, and they require that their teachers have a bachelor's degree. Therefore, enrollment has grown exponentially every year because of the school's reputation, and now they have 500 students in grades preschool through 5th grade. They will be adding 6th grade this fall. Finding teachers in Haiti with a bachelor's degree was difficult. So United Christians International, or UCI College, was founded by the Mompremiers to prepare pastors and teachers. Haiti has very few good-paying jobs, and the few that it has usually go to foreigners from Cuba or the Dominican Republic because Haitians do not have quality education. But UCI has an all-Haitian board, and it too has high standards. No professor teaches at UCI without a master's degree, and they are Haitians who teach. Another priority for the people in Haiti is, of course, food. You've probably heard about the deforestation and how it has impacted Haiti's soil quality and ecosystems. So offering degrees in agriculture was seen as an important option for UCI College. The area has worked hard to reforest and plant trees. And in fact, the week that we arrived, 300 elementary students were sent home with the saplings that they were to plant. Haiti's government will not subsidize fuel oil, so people must use charcoal in order to cook. But people in this area are taught to plant and use only fast-growing trees, ones that grow up to 15 feet in season. They use that for their charcoal. Students raise crops and are taught how to care for the soil and replace nutrients so they can get 3 crops a year from their plots. Medical care is another need in Haiti. There is no such thing as insurance, and the people must pay privately and upfront before care is given. You may go to the hospital with a machete wound, but you and your family must come up with the money before you get stitches or an antibiotic. So UCI began training future doctors to care for the 30,000 people in the area who need health care. That brings us to our involvement. I have been on several mission trips in the past, but I have never done medical mission. I received a call from a nurse who had been to Haiti several times, asking me if I would like to go. While I really didn't know her, and I certainly didn't know what to expect, I said yes. But after our first trip, we could see that there was a great need for ongoing care for chronic conditions like high blood pressure, and just episodic medical mission was not enough. In conversations with Christy and at UCI, I found out that their goal was to ultimately build a clinic near campus and have medical students provide care while supervised by physician. Well, I teach at Allen College, and our Allen College students do exactly the same thing at Salvation Army in Waterloo here. So when I heard this, I knew we had to partner with them. I was so convinced that I wrote a grant for this partnership, planning to provide medical mission teams every 3 months until they had their clinic. Now, while this sounds like a really good idea, it was pretty bold because I had no idea how it would happen or when it would happen. The first hurdle would be to find a physician who would be able to supervise students at the clinic. Haitian physicians, as you can imagine, are scarce, and the ones currently teaching at the college are stretched thin. Most teach at 1 or more colleges and practice in 2 to 3 hospitals. And with Haitian roads, it takes 40 minutes to drive just 10 miles, no lie. And so they couldn't just drive down the road quickly to the next place. I had no idea how or when they would find a physician. And then there was the small matter of the clinic. They had plans drawn up, but even in their scaled down version, it would cost $80,000. This is no small sum in Haiti, and especially when UCI had all their other programs that continued to need support as well. But John and his church prayed and believed, and you may have heard that not only did a Haitian physician come forward and commit to running the clinic, but the $80,000 needed for the clinic was raised in 40 days over Lent. Now, there was a great celebration in the church when they found out the great news. They were amazed, but they were not surprised. One physician will not be able to meet all the needs of the area, so empowering lay midwives is another way to help. We began meeting with local midwives to see how we could assist them. The maternal child death rate in Haiti is very high, and most women still deliver at home, as I told the children. So our last group of missioners paid for these midwives to receive 20 weeks of formal training and become certified midwives. And because many midwives must walk over 2 hours to get to this class, our church is helping to pay for meals while they are there. John showed us a new church that was recently being built in a village nearby. They were digging a well near the property, and I don't know if you can see it, but they're lowering the man down by rope, 100 feet, to dig by hand. They were also building homes and cementing floors. Their agronomist was planning on meeting with the local farmers in the next weeks to help them with their crops. When a church is planted, the whole village is transformed. It's truly a holistic view. Now this next slide is just to show you, John says the Haitian people may not have money, but they have music. And I have described all of this activity at UCI so that you can see that it is nothing less than miraculous. And the Mompremiers have only been there 9 years, and they started out with 3 months of financial support. We joked with John and his church and told them that they better be careful what they pray for, because apparently God is listening. The care given at the clinic will not be free. It will be based on ability to pay, and of course that will be minimal and often in trade. So it will not be sufficient to support the physician's salary or the medications and supplies needed. The medical clinic will need ongoing financial support, and it is unlikely that the Haitian government will provide this, so they will still need people like you to bless them. John is a firm believer that people must work for what they get. He does not want his people to be dependent on handouts. Everyone has something of worth to give. He has seen many well-meaning people and programs offer temporary help, but if people are not given tools to make lasting changes, nothing is really accomplished. Many of you have heard me say that I feel called to serve the poor, but I feel especially called to serve those in poverty in my own community. That is why I've been involved with Love Inc. While so many programs for the poor simply make us feel better and do nothing to change the situation long term, Love Inc. tries to address the root of the problem and give people the tools that they need to become more self-sufficient. So if my heart is broken for the poor here at home, what am I doing in Haiti? And believe me, the Lord and I have had this conversation many times. Lord, what am I doing in Haiti? But I think I have finally discovered why God led me there. I think the Haitians near UCI have something we lack. The Holy Spirit has been doing miracles there on a regular basis because the people have prayed, and not only prayed, but believed. James 1:6 says, "But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because one who doubts is like a wave on the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord." These people saw the power that Jesus had over voodoo and believed. And ever since then, they have truly believed that nothing is impossible with God. I am convinced that this is the lesson that God wanted me to learn. Love Inc. has an uphill battle. Most programs require only that you show that you have need in order to qualify for assistance. Love Inc. starts there, but then asks persons to be willing to work to make changes. Persons who come to the transformational classes don't want to stop, and they have experienced real success. But the challenge is to get people to come. Going to Haiti allowed me to see what could be accomplished in a few years' time by people who prayed, believed, and allowed the Holy Spirit to work through them. No one would have guessed where the Mompremiers would be today, least of all the Mompremiers. But they prayed, believed, obeyed, and God's power has been made known. I believe the same is true of Love Inc. and the Cedar Valley. I am convinced that the holistic approach that Love Inc. takes to poverty is the right approach. It's a biblical approach, and it's not unlike the approach that UCI has taken. All we need is prayer warriors like you, who not only pray, but believe. God always uses the most likely to accomplish his will, so there will be no question that he is responsible for the result. In Jesus' day, they asked, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" Well, today one might ask, "Can anything good come from Waterloo, Iowa?" Well, friends, I believe that this is just the kind of place that God is looking for to show his glory. But the power of the Holy Spirit only comes to bear when people pray and believe. I challenge you now to unleash heaven's power here in the Cedar Valley. Will you pray every day for Love Inc., for its finances, for its impact, for the persons that it touches to take the step, to take the classes, and make meaningful change? If you will pray and believe, I will come back to you at the end of this year and tell you of the miraculous growth that Love Inc. has had. I started out thinking that I would bring a little hope to those in Haiti, but as it turns out, I have returned with hope